Hey, as earlier promised, I will be sharing with you the systems life cycle. A simple description. A systems life cycle basically describes the steps that a system goes through from the initial stages to the final stages. Basically, it describes the steps or the stages or the things that a programmer or software developer goes through to have the system up and running. There are basically 6 stages that are involved in the systems life cycle. We have the analysis stage, the design stage, the development and testing stage, the implementation stage, documentation stage, and then the evaluation stage. What is analysis stage? In the analysis stage, it is where the programmer or the software developer gets a system analyst to try and understand the pre-existing system, if there is one. And it basically has these steps. 1, you research and collect data from the current system analysis. 2, you describe the current system. You identify the problems with the current system. You agree the objectives with the clients. You identify and agree customer requirements. You interpret customer requirements, produce a cost-effective analysis, identify suitable hardware and software, and then produce a data flow diagram. Now, I'm going to try to explain each and every part in the system analysis, in the analysis stage. Now, research or collect data from the current system. Like I said, when you're searching a system, you first bring a system analyst to study the current system, to analyze it, to collect data about the system. How does it work? What does it require to work? How many people operate it? How is it operated? Can it be made any better? In the research stage, it's where we use the different methods to collect data about the system. For example, I can start by using observation. Me as a system analyst, I come in and study the system. For example, if you're designing a new model of phone, you look at the current model of the phone and see what does it do, what does it have, how can I make it better. That's why you see every new model of phone that comes, it is always better than the previous model. Simply why they make a lot of research and study the current phone so they can easily make it better by observation. Observation basically involves watching personnel using the existing system to find out exactly how it works. I tell people use that object, use the system, I study how you're using it, and then I collect the data and I understand how best it can be used. Another way of collecting the data is by using observation. It's by using questionnaires. Remember, I'm trying to research and collect data about the current system, so I use questionnaires. What is a questionnaire? A questionnaire is something like a document that is given out to people to fill in, to understand, tell you how they find the system. Basically, you distribute questionnaires to the workforce, clients, or system users to find out their views of the existing system. If I wanted to find out about a given subject or a given something, maybe how you find the taste of this soda, how you find the usage of your phones, I will have to give you a questionnaire and then you fill it in for me, and then I use that questionnaire to gather information about that particular aspect. Another way is through interviews. I meet the users of the system and we share one-on-one. I ask questions as they give me feedback there and then. Then I can also look at the existing paperwork. Every system has paperwork accompanying it, whether you like it or not. Every system has paperwork. A report, something that describes how they came to this, how they did, why they gave it, the user interface they gave it, how you can overcome a given error code. If you're keen enough in your phones, if you're buying your phones, there's a document that comes with it, a flyer, a booklet that describes how to use a phone, what to do in case something bad happens. If you buy let me say Vaseline or lotion, there's always that documentation in case it comes in contact with your eyes, wash with water and soap, do not burn an empty tin, something that's basically the documentation that we're talking about. You look at it so you can be able to gather the more information about that particular system. Now, that's all under analysis. I'm trying to analyze the current system. Now, When you're carrying out the analysis process, you use data flow diagrams. Data flow diagrams are used to cover the input, output, and processing that is done. It identifies the problems of the current system. It also identifies the user and information requirements, and also identifies system specifications. Basically, data flow diagrams put the process into a logical dramatic form. Later on, as we move on, I'll share with you some examples of data flow diagrams. Yes. Now, then the next stage we have is the design stage. What do we find in the design stage? The design stage basically includes designing of any data capture forms. You design the screen layouts and outputs. You design the production of system flowcharts. You design or choose the validation rules to be used. You design the file structures. You produce the algorithms that you're going to use. You produce the program flowcharts, and then you design this testing strategy for the new system. What are data capture forms? Data capture forms are forms that allow data to be input into the system. They will either be paper-based or electronic-based, depending on the application. Now, if we talk about paper-based forms, one, they must have a heading to make the purpose of the form very clear. They must be very clear to the person filling in the form so that they know where to place their answers. They must make use of text boxes, which will limit the amount of information collected. They must also use tick boxes to make choices easier, such as sex, male or female, just tick. You must use clear fonts and clear text colors to ensure that the form is easy to read. So, and then they're almost the same as computer-based. So when you design form, you must make sure you use some nice data capture forms. Two, we have this screen displays and printed reports. Now, remember, we're trying to capture data. We're trying to design our system. We're in the design stage whereby we design the data capture forms. They're already designed. We can either be paper-based or electronic-based. Two, we design the system layouts. Now, in the system layouts, the screen layouts, we can either use the screen displays and printed reports. What do these ones do? These ones give us the output from any system so that we can be able to consider it. The screen displays and printed reports, they give us the output from any system. They give us the output from the system. That way we can able to consider the user interface and the result of using some form of processing. Now, once we're designing screen outputs, we must make sure that the size of all the output fields is correct. We must make sure that instructions are clear. We must make sure that the full screen is utilized, i.e. we avoid the white space or the large areas of nothing. And the output colors and fonts must make the output clear. If you're to print it out, then you must make sure that you consider the type of output that you're going to use. Still under the design stage, we look at the system flowcharts. A flowchart describes how each data is to flow within the system and how decisions are made. How does data come from the input to the output? When you input a command, how will it be processed within the system? So the data flowchart, the system flowcharts or the data flowcharts describe for us that aspect, that area. They show us exactly how the data flowchart or how the data will flow within the system from the time it is input to the time the information is output after a given scenario. Then we have verification. How are you going to verify the data that is being entered? We use verification basically to prevent errors when data is copied from one medium to another. And we have two ways of verification. We have double entry and visual check. We use double entry where we enter data twice using two people and is then compared. For example, I come in, I input data, another person comes in, inputs the same data. Of course, if there's any difference, you try to match with the original copy and see where the error has been made. 2, we use visual check, the most common one. We use visual check to check for errors by the person who's entering the data. You compare the entered data with the original document. For example, if you're doing your examination after you've finished writing whatever you've written, your answers, you do a visual check to see if what you've written is what you feel is the right answer. Then we also have validation still under the design phase. Validation is a process where data is checked to see if it satisfies certain criteria when input into a computer. What do we mean? To make sure that the data entered falls within an accepted boundary, accepted range. For example, if I tell you that I want people who are of this age, you must make sure that the data entered is within the given range of age. 18 and above is the data you're entering. The person who you're admitting is 18 and above. So basically, validation sets of rules that help us make sure that the data entered is within the set boundaries or set ranges. And we have basically around, we have some basic validation checks. I'll take you through them quickly. One, we have a range check. This one checks whether the data is within given or acceptable values. For example, to check whether a person's age is greater than 0, and maybe a person to check whether a person is between 16 years and 24 years. If you have told you that a person should be 18 years and above, that shows the range check cannot allow a person whose age is below 18 years. 2, lookup check. Lookup check basically makes sure that the data entered is stored in a table of data. As simple as that. You check whether the data you've entered is in a given database. For example, if you're in a school system and send for exams to input your marks, a lookup check would be very useful in that if you're not admitted, if you're not entered at the start of admission, then you can't appear here, you can't have marks. That lookup check will compare your name with a table of admitted students. If it doesn't exist, then there's an error. Then that shows the data will not be accepted. Then we have the length check. Length check is used to basically check whether the data entered is within an acceptable, to check whether the input data contains a required number of characters. What do I mean? They tell you that to enter a phone number, you should have only 10 digits. So that means the length check, if you reach 10 digits, it should not accept anything less than 10 or more than 10. You've seen it, you're trying to fill in a form somewhere online and then you put in characters and they tell you characters not enough. That's the one way of using length check, to make sure that the number of characters entered is the required number. Then the character or type check, it must make sure that the data entered does not contain invalid characters. For example, a person's name should not contain any number. That's the character check. So if you enter a number in the name section and it has character check, the data entered will be rejected. We have the picture check or the format check. To check if the data is in a given specific format. Presence check, to check if really the data has been entered or there's no missing data. Consistency check, it checks if fields correspond with each other. And then check digit, this is an extra digit added to a number which is calculated from the digits. We're going to look at it later on. Then the other stage involved in the analysis stage, we have, in the design stage, we have the file structures. You must make sure that the data, the files, the fields used in the system have specific structures. How do they look like? One, they must have the field length, they must have a field name and a suitable data type. Take an example. The field name could be first name, the field length could be 15, the field type could be text. Suitable validation check. How do you check that it is text? That's what's most suitable? That's the type check, because now names must be text on the plan. You must make sure that once you're developing or designing a software for the new system, you must test it thoroughly to make sure, 1, it meets our good requirements, 2, to remove any bugs or errors from the system, 3, to make sure it produces the required output for data, and 4, check that the software doesn't crash under certain conditions. So you must develop a testing strategy plan. How are you going to test the system once it is ready? It is in this design stage that you design that strategy. How am I going to test it, and what am I going to use it to test it? Now, for the next stage, I'll share it in my next video.